This session, there's no more content. This session is about how to maximize your strategy as a test taker, okay? I was figuring out last night, in my 40 years of academia, I've done about a little north of 300 multiple choice tests. I made them up. Not myself, but from the test book manuals and checking items that are going to be in the test, and then when a new edition comes out, doing another one. Because a good multiple choice item is made by those that do well and is missed by those that don't do well. Multiple choice items that everyone gets right or everyone gets wrong are filtered out. So I had a policy that 70% of the class or 75% missed an item that was a non-active discriminator, and I would throw it out and then recalibrate what the tests were. So, but I became very, very good at looking at multiple choice items and seeing if it's a good item or if not, because I didn't want to have to throw items out. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to go about doing that, and I'm going to actually use questions from the NCE to help tell you about how to do that, okay? So first off, major change this year. It's not paper and pencil. Okay, I used to say underline the word not or all of the above or whatever. You can't do that on the computer screen. How many have taken a test online? Okay, well that's good. I did find out from our representatives there that there's a running clock as you're taking the test. You have 4 hours to take 160 items. Okay, that's 90 seconds an item. Now, what you don't, I didn't figure that out in my head. I did it on a computer. But you say, well, 90 seconds, I can just lollygag. No, the biggest thing you face with both of these tests, CPCE and the NCE, is the fatigue factor. Okay, the fatigue factor of just getting tired. So you don't want to waste time in just on items that are no-brainers, and you don't want to just, you want to mark an item, come back to it at the end if it's something you're going to spend a great deal of time trying to pour over. Depending upon the testing situation, they might allow you to get up and stretch or get a drink of water. You do that on your time. You don't get extra time for that. But you should have plenty of time, so don't be afraid of the fact, I'm not going to. Try to simulate the test-taking situation with some of the practice tests, and do maybe 50 or 75, and make sure you're under what 75 times 90 is. So you're taking it with the right clip. Okay. So it is time. The good news is, not like the GRE, there's no penalty for guessing. So you want to make sure before that clock goes off, every item has an answer to it. Every item. Do not leave any blank. Okay? Now, it's computer generated, so this doesn't apply, but when professors make up tests, they always guess for the middle, because unconsciously they try to hide the right answer in the middle. But it doesn't apply to this. Yeah. I didn't make up many because most of the publishing companies, the test banks, are vetted for reliability and validity, which is great. Because you make up your own, it's difficult to do. You can return to prior questions. You can mark questions and come back to it later. You'll have a little tutorial before the exam begins, which I would take to make sure that you are familiar with what's going on, so you're not wasting time for that. And some testing organizations, she didn't have the answer to this, allows you to bring in a blank sheet of paper and a pen. And you will check your smartphone, you will check if you have a smart watch, you will have to put that in the bag and they'll secure that and so forth. You can't have anything in there but you and a blank sheet of paper, possibly, or a pencil. If you can take a blank sheet of paper, I would take it in, because you can always use that to draw like a normal curve or something to figure out something that you're asked a question of. and at the end of the test, they'll have you bring that back and they'll shred it. So those are some parameters from them on that. Let's see here.
Dr. Bradshaw, do you know if you've gone through the whole test, can you go and look just at the marked questions that you
Yes.
want to review? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, the ones that you mark, you can go back to them because there'll be a list of them, so you can go back to them and look at them again without having to go through the whole test, because that would be really burdensome. It's the whole idea behind marking them. And I would encourage you to do that, especially if it's something you're going to spend a lot of time on. It's not worth fatiguing yourself with one question for 2 or 3 minutes, and then the rest of the test you're still trying to catch up from all the time spent on that. If you go back to that question and spend 2 or 3 minutes on it, you haven't wasted your energy, so you're fresher for the other questions.
You might get the answer based on another question.
Yes, you might. You might. That's correct. There's an introduction in your this the screen booklet here. The best way to prepare for a test like this is take practice tests, as many as you can. This screen booklet here at I guess this would be Roman numeral 6:14. I get confused about the X and the I's and before. But Roman numeral 14 and Roman numeral 15, I think, talks about, or no, that's 19 and 20. XX is 20, I know that. So the other has to be 19. It talks a little bit about the 8 areas that we've covered in Pro Seminar, okay? And you have to get 6 of the 8 at 70 percentile. Okay, 70 percentile is average. And some of you have to just recalibrate what you're used to doing and thinking about testing situations here at Richmont. Because this is different. This is a different ballgame. Everybody in every university, counseling training program across the nation is taking this test. So the group you're being compared to is a very large group. But that's good in a way, because the larger the group, the greater the variance. If it was just a small group and they were all from Harvard or whatever, you'd be in trouble. You know, it's like, okay. But what? Yeah.
So what, tell us our score at the end, like the GRE test, and then they'll apply it to the curve.
Yeah, I don't believe you get the actual score, and it's really, really good that they don't tell you if you missed a certain item as you're taking the test. Some tests do that. But yeah, and then they also, put a mild shock through your left leg. No, they don't do this. It's 160 questions. Only 17 of them count towards your score because there's some of each section. I'm sorry, of each section of 20. Yeah. 20 times 8 is 160, right? Yeah. So keep pages 19 and 20 introduction. Read through those. For the NCE, at the bottom of page 20, they actually have how many questions are in each content area. Well, that's great. Professional organization is 29 in ethical practice items, 11 in social cultural, 12 in human growth, 20 in human development items. So you know the exact number of items in each area for the NCE. That's not the way it is for the CPCE, but that will help in studying for that.
When do you get your scores for the CPCE or your pass-fail designation or whatever it is that you're...
Yeah, there'll be a report back to us as an institution. I'm not sure about how they do that individually, but we have to have the aggregate results in order to give you the results that's important to you. But Allison Mead will be the one that will be coaching you about that or giving you information about that.
I think she said it was second ProSem. I'll post it with our name.
The one in February?
Will either ruin your day or...
Okay.
We can find out.
All right, let's talk about some questions. So I'll try to integrate some of the things that we want to talk about while we're doing this. And here's some examples. First of all, you read the whole STEM. Read the whole STEM. Viewing clients from one's own cultural background, which is believed to be superior to other cultures and is ignoring the client's personal cultural context, is known as. And then you have 3 distractors and 1 correct answer. Okay? So you're trying to find the best answer. All right? So you try to eliminate things that initially you say, that can't be it. Like, what's interjection? Yeah, that's a distractor, because it is a term, but it's not related to this, right? So you look for those things so you can say, okay, now I have a better chance of getting the right answer if I'm guessing. Same thing with B, for the human growth and development item, right? So you'd say, oh, I think it's probably A or D. Well, cultural identity has to do with how you feel about yourself and your cultural background and all. Cultural encapsulation is the correct answer for this in ED. So that's how you kind of reason. You're not going to say that to yourself. You're just going to try to do it that way. Stress management, self-worth, and leisure are dimensions of. Okay, those are 3 items. Dimension of what are those 3 items most like of these 4 options? Social self factor, essential self, coping self, or creative self. Okay, so this is a good example because they all have self as the ending. Usually if they have one that doesn't, that could be a distractor. And look at what those terms have in common with one another. Stress management, self-worth, leisure. Does that have more to do with your relational self? Essential might be, just your self-identity. Creative self is probably a distractor, although there is a creativity part of who we are. The correct answer is C, or should be C. Coping self, because stress management, self-worth, leisure are all sort of related to that as opposed to the others. When members form an unhealthy attachment in group work, this is most likely means that the member, reading the whole STEM, A, has become involved in an abusive relationship with another member, feels dependent on the relationship formed in the group, has developed a romantic attachment to another group member, all of the above. So what do you think about this one? Yeah.
The other 2 hit A and C.
Yes. Very good. Could you say all the above? You could, because, but an unhealthy attachment is really not descriptive of an abusive relationship. Is it not healthy for the the group? Yes, and for the member. Same thing with the romantic attachment. But B is more focused to what the STEM asked for, even though the others too. Once again, you're finding the best answer. Okay. To do this is another thing. To do all the above, all of them have to be equally pertinent as an answer. Stay away from all the above unless all of them are. You know they are. Like for instance, the 5-factor model for personality ocean. They have them listed, and you know they're there. You say all the above. But if you're uncertain, don't put all the above. So a researcher recruited, okay, so this is a research question. You try to initially get, am I going lifestyle and career development? Am I going social and cultural? Am I going counseling theories and techniques? Am I going ethics? This is research. Try to get your mind in that channel. Recruited 2 counseling groups of clients who self-reported to be test anxious. That's important. One group was instructed to use on the use of meditation prior to exams. The other was not, and served as controls. Students' anxiety level was assessed after the training just prior to final exams. Which research design has been described? Well, you know it can't be A, right? Because there's 2 groups. So you can eliminate that very rationally and very logically and not worry about it being the right answer. Can't do that. C isn't pertinent because it's not a randomized sample. Okay? They recruited 2 counseling groups, so it's more like existing groups than it is inconvenient sampling than it is random sampling. So that's not right. Pre-experimental doesn't apply, so the answer should be B, quasi-experimental. Okay, that's the reasoning you do to go through with that. That's a little longer stem, so you have to stay focused on that. Here's a short stem. An example of resistance is client who refuses to talk, client who frequently misses appointments, client who tries to steer conversations towards irrelevant or safe topics. Okay. What do you think?
D.
That was D and D together. D. Correct answer is D, because they are all manifestations of resistance, right? I think not paying one's bill is a bigger determinant of resistance than those other 3, but yeah, not talking, missing appointments, being late for appointments can be signs of resistance, and also just talking, trying to fill the air with irrelevant things. Counselor may choose to run a group because, and this is a challenging part, because if the shorter the stem is, the more factual it is. If it's more, you have to sort of think about the question, then it gets a little dicier because you don't have as much information. What do you think? D is correct, yeah, all the above. It is more cost efficient, it is time efficient. You can do more clients at one time. Presents members with a microcosm of the society. Okay, power test. That's the shortest stem you'll have. 2 words. So, what's the alternative to power test?
Time test.
Speed test. Okay. So speed tests are where there's a time limit, and no one is expected to get finished in time. All right. It's designed that way. IQ tests are sometimes like that. You're not supposed to get finished. No. But A, use time to prevent perfect scores. B, are concerned with normal performance. C, assess how quickly a test taker can understand the question and choose the right answer. D, prevents perfect scores by including difficult items.
D. D.
What do you think?
D.
Yeah, the correct answer is D. You include difficult items because you want to discriminate those between the know material and do not. Power tests try to do that by having items that discriminate. Speed tests try to do it by time. Yeah, C is more of a speed test question. B is, you can eliminate that pretty easily because it doesn't make sense. Concerned with normal performance. Power tests are just a way of trying to assess.
What's an example of a power test?
Well, I think that the CPCE would be one. Yeah, GRE. A lot of your achievement tests are power tests because they're not set up so that you can't finish. They're set up to try to show competency or project and predict achievement. So a lot of your IQ tests are time related because they want to have a seal. They don't want to have a ceiling in the sense they want to be able to test the larger variance of intelligence. So you have to make sure you have enough items for that and have time be your discriminator. Okay, a counselor wants to explore the relationship between 3 types of counseling interventions and client satisfaction. Okay, now I'm thinking research by that, just by the STEM. Finish with the STEM. Which of the following would represent a confounding variable? Okay, go back to research and say, sometimes it's referred to as intervening variable, sometimes it's referred to as a confounding variable. Anything that interferes with the relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. That's a confounding variable. Okay? So what do you think?
C. It's tricky. Could be A.
Because maybe with either Dr. Sizemore or Dr. Plisco, you talked about the fact that there's a difference between random error and systematic error. Systematic error you want to try to eliminate in research designs. Random error is controlled by random assignment and randomization. Okay? So this one here, if you're heterogeneous, that means it's spread out over, not homogeneous, which means they're all the same. That's more randomized, so that's not confounding. Time of day is really a distractor. The only time that might be, if it said the last appointment in every counselor's calendar, that might be significant, but 10 o'clock is not significant. Environmental factors. Yeah, clients vary in their trauma history. Everybody has trauma. The degree of trauma and amount of trauma in our lives differ for individuals. So the correct answer, that A would be more confounding than the others. Because if each intervention, affected and dealt with a different client problem, you would have a hard time making generalization from that research.
So research design error versus the confounding variable. Like I see it, but I would think the confounding variable would be like the unforeseen thing that skews your data.
And to give it enough participants to test each of the 3 interventions, so it would just be like.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I would say it'd be more of a design issue than confounding technically, but they say.
Confounding was out of your control, wasn't it?
Well, it is and isn't, because one of your goals as a researcher is to try to make the relationship between the independent and dependent variables as pure as possible. Now, that's a fallen world. So if you're aware of confounds, you try to control for them. But yeah, designs are supposed to try to eliminate those.
That's one that would be thrown out.
But you can't. It probably would be, but they say A is the right answer. So that's a difficult one.
Where are these questions from?
They're from a former NCE test.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they're not just made up. They have been on the NCE. Not made up by me for sure.
Totally made up.
A person who's friendly and empathetic would most likely score high on the blank factor of the 5-factor model. Okay, we're talking about, remember the 5-factor? What was the metaphor for that? Okay. Which one is not one of them? Yeah, B. You wouldn't want to choose that. But it's kind of interesting. They make the distractor Yeah, well, it's, yeah, a little bit close to what the actual answer is, which is interesting. But not conscientiousness, or not, it's really openness to experience, right? So the correct answer would be D. Group member screening is a legal requirement, an ethical requirement, recommended, but neither a legal or ethical requirement, both a legal and an ethical requirement. I hate questions like this because it's like, you know, and I don't think you will have any of these because systematically they show they're not very reliable, where it says the correct answer is A and B, or C and E, or just C.
No, I don't do that.
So it's just not, it's not a good way of doing it. So what do you think about this?
C.
Well, okay.
It's not legal.
First of all, is it a legal requirement?
No.
No. You have to eliminate that one, all right?
So that means you do D as well.
Now-
Eliminate D too.
So it can't be this, right?
Right.
It can't be D. If you say A is not in the mix, then you've already eliminated D, right? You have to, logically. So then you're just with the two, all right? And this is one of those where you kind of have to know that it is an ethical requirement. But you know, they try to put a nice distractor in there that sounds like it's a good answer because it's longer and it sounds good, but it's wrong. It's wrong because it's not.
I don't think it's
It's
not required.
It's not-
I think it's recommended but not required.
Well, let's put it this way. If you do a group without pre-group screening, you are behaving unethically, I think. I mean, it's not like it's not an ethical way. Why do you do that? You do that because the participants have to know expectation-wise what to expect in a group.
That's aspirational ethics, not.
Right. Question back here?
Like they suggest because like screen versus
Yeah.
I like to spite.
Okay. Have you,
Ready to go.
try not to get tripped up with. You're thinking very, very good in the sense that you're saying, okay, requirement versus recommendation. Okay, but try to think of it systemically in the sense of from your group class. If you were going to do a group, you would do pre-group interviews because it's considered to be appropriate things to do, which is what ethics, you know, are.
That's that overthinking thing.
Yeah, you can overthink it. It is, you would be behaving unethically if you didn't do that. Because you say, well, it's not a requirement. Well, but it's an expected ethical behavior.
Wait, so.
No, it was A.
No, it was B. It was B.
I'm sorry. It was B. I didn't do that on purpose. That was a real inadvertent error. Not a random. No, the correct answer is B. An ethical requirement. Okay, this one, which one is not an example of a subjective test? Objective test, subjective test. And you want to try to choose which one is not.
D as in dog. Not D.
Okay, you would definitely eliminate A, right? Everyone say A is not the answer.
A is
Sense
not the
completion
answer.
is projective, right? This is a little confusing because the mental status exam is where you're actually talking about how much contact with reality they have, what their affect is. You're reading their personhood in that intake. That is subjective. Even though you're checking boxes, that's still subjective. So the correct answer is D. Because it's a type of a test that you can score on this range. Right? Sampling method, which participants from an entire population have an equal chance of being selected, is known as what type of sampling? Systematic, random sampling, quota, or stratified? Simple random, B. Yeah. What's the gold standard for a research article you're reading? Saying that it's peer-reviewed, randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind. Remember those three things from research design? Those are the good housekeeping seal of approval if you have an empirical design. Assessment generally occurs during what stage of counseling? Now this, I don't like this question. Because I think assessment is ongoing, okay?
All the time.
I do believe it is, okay? But I don't like this question, but it's in the bank, so I got to deal with it. So this is a good example of putting your personal, opinions aside, saying which area of counseling does it occur more in? D. C. No. Rapport building, yeah, that's really a distractor. There's, obviously it doesn't determine. It doesn't have to determination. Don't put that down, please don't. In most states, for counselors to work in private practice, they must obtain, this is a discriminating question about the difference between licensure and certification. All right? Yeah, you need a license. A is the correct answer. And they threw C in there to say, oh, well, I'll just be sure that I get it right by saying both of them. No, you get them wrong.
About the one like this earlier, are those normally distractors, like if it's both and or neither or?
No, that's a good question. Yeah, if one of them has something in there that like they have to stand alone. Like you say, to practice in most states, you can be certified but not licensed. No, you can't. You have to be licensed. You can be licensed and certified as a ISW Christian sex therapist, but you can't practice as an LPC without being licensed as an LPC.
Right, and the word is must.
Yes,
Must
yes.
obtain.
That's, yeah, right. Those key words are, like Lori was saying, pay attention to those, okay? So we're trying to define which one of those is most deterministic. Okay, you can eliminate these two, right away. So you're just talking about these two. What's the difference between Alfred Adler, and Freud? Okay. Adler was the disciple of Freud. Freud was the epitome of deterministic. So correct answer would be psychoanalysis. Which is the following is not related to career salience. I'll let you read those and then we'll talk about the answers here.
Did you hear me? No.
Once again, you're looking at not, so you're trying to find three things that hang together and one that doesn't seem to fit. This is a hard one. Because it deals with all different issues of career, but the salience issue is the discriminator.
I guess I'm using salient and solvent, so I'm going to say A.
Well, right, and C, C, and D. What did that mean? Because attachment, meaning, and satisfaction all kind of link together. So they kind of link all the other ones are how much you want. How good it is. That's just like how much time you spend doing it, which could be more money.
Salience is how powerful that is. Okay, so even if you hate your job, it can be salient, right? A lot of people work for a living. If what you do you love, you don't work a day in your life. But correct answer, they said, is C. What? Now, I put this here for a reason. This is one that I would encourage you to mark for later. Don't spend a lot of time on this, because this is a difficult one. Mark this for later. Now, if you get...
Okay, so the salience just without it being career defined specifically is particularly noticeable or important or prominent.
Yeah.
So how spending time and energy?
Well, they would say probably because it's career, your job is related to you. I mean, yours is your career, so that's salient to that. Yeah. Okay? So here's my point. Mark this one, come back to it. Don't spend a lot of grief on it. Don't get discouraged by it. Mark it, come back. If you're marking any more than 5 or 6 in the first 50, you're maybe marking a little bit too many. Okay, construct validity. This question has to do with a type of validity. There's different types of construct, different types of validity, right? Construct is one of them. And it's trying to say, okay, which one is not concerned with that? Now, the hint with this one is the incorrect answer actually has another type of validity in the answer. A, right? There's criterion validity, right? Bingo. That would be my answer. Construct validity is all about doing that when there is an abstract concept. You know, that's the whole idea behind it. So B is like the definition of what it is. Ethnocentrism. Once again, here's a short stem. Definition. Which definition best typifies the answer to that? B, right. See, it's interesting because A is this direct opposite of that. You might find questions, if you have two that are just polar opposites, the correct answer is probably one of those two. Remember that? Okay. C is a distractor. Ethnography is not the only way of doing culturally appropriate research. All right, here's an interesting one about bracketing our values. A client tells his counselor that after thinking about all the potential consequences, he has decided to engage in an extramarital affair. The counselor believes he will be making a huge mistake. He takes this course of action. However, after consideration, the counselor decides to accept and respect the client's decision and not try to convince the client to change his mind. In this situation, the counselor is upholding the ethical principle of autonomy. Yes. Okay. Now, independence is in there, but autonomy is more relevant because of the ethical literature.
Well,
don't choose B. B is a distractor. What he's committing is infidelity, right? That can't be right.
Dylan.
Oh my gosh.
Here's another one. Okay,
I just want to make sure.
try to get through as many as we can. in the
Next Saturday.
minutes here. Spiritual bypass
I'll be taking a test and we'll be like,
refers to C has to be a distractor. I mean, it's too strongly stated. Anti-discrimination policy that prohibits spirituality questions. Now, A and B are flip opposites of one another, but you can discuss, the client can bring up spirituality, and if you have an agreement in advance about a faith-based approach to the counseling, you can bring up spirituality issues as well. The correct answer is D. And here's the reason why I included this one. This is really important. This test is designed by ACA, not anybody that taught you anything in any integrated courses you've had here. You have to throw that, not throw out the window. You have to disregard that when you're taking this test. You say, because we learned about how as faith-based counselors we should do this. That won't help you with the test. It'll confuse you. You have to think secular mindset. That's just the reality of it.
They're gonna think that anything that's spiritual is a defense mechanism.
Right, right. That's why I put this one in here, because that wouldn't necessarily be my preferred answer to that, but that's the answer that they say. Okay, this one has to do with the difference between positive and negative reinforcement, punishment. Someone evidently had a lot of that in their upbringing.
What is happening? Aaron knows.
Nobody choose A. It can't be A. Right? Now, once you get two different types of punishment things, my suspicion, negative reinforcement is removing a noxious stimulus when you have the appropriate response. Okay? Like when you put your seatbelt on and that buzzer goes away, that just negatively reinforces that behavior. Negative reinforcement when you cease a noxious stimulus to reinforce a behavior. Click your seatbelt, the buzzer goes away, right? So that's not it. You're taking away a privilege, which is a positive thing. So you're experiencing punishment, stimulus removed, D. D. Getting a spanking for what he did would be punishment, stimulus applied.
That's what I like.
Many of you have had that experience. I hate this question because there's not enough variance between the answers. Here's a good illustration of this, okay? If you really don't know, you know it's early for Adler. They're not going to say 18. So if they have 18 up there, don't choose that.
But they don't.
4.
The correct answer is 5. But it's like, guess in the middle if you don't have, don't guess the ends.
We're gonna get some wrong.
Myers-Briggs type indicator, okay, person that uses all 5 senses taking information. The answer is contained in the stem. Okay, great. You got it? Yeah, don't overthink it. That should be about 10 seconds. All right, here's the one that says except. So you're thinking, what doesn't fit? Again, as a group enters a working stage, all of the following should occur except. All right?
C as in cookie.
It's one of these two, isn't it? Yeah, it's B. The leader should become less directive during the working stage.
Wait, what?
We're all losing our minds.
It should become less
Everyone just got going.
I thought that was that's what they changed it. They changed it. Should not be.
Correct answer is C.
Yeah, you said B.
No, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. C. C. Right? Well, look at it this way. Which stage does the leader's full talents come out most? The working stage. So they're going to be more active in the sense of trying to connect the dots and relationships and so forth. But no, well, right. Except that.
We all know.
C. All right, here's one about the normal curve and standard error measurement. 84. So the standard error measurement is 5 above that and 5 below that. So you're talking about 89 to 79.
Yes.
So then you're saying, okay, that eliminates this one, right? Because it's not 79. And I wouldn't choose D. But, so the question is, okay, standard error measure has to do with one standard deviation above the mean. So one standard deviation is 68%. Two standard deviations is 96. 3 is 99. So the correct answer is B. Right? You're talking about where the true score lies. Standard error measure says the true score lies between 5 above 94 and 5 below.
So the average.
All right, here's one you have to know about research too. The tail of a skew distribution points toward the type of distribution it is. So when you're in grad school, you want your test to be negatively skewed because you want a lot of positive scores, high scores, B's and A's, right? If scores are piled up at the low end of the scale, it's what's kind of skewed? Positive. Bargaining with the client may be reasonable under the following circumstances, except, this is a difficult one, because technically the ethical principles say if it's not contraindicated, the counselor doesn't think it's going to be unproductive for the client in some way. It has to be fair. It can be suggested by the client. And if it's accept the convention in the community, that's acceptable in that particular area. The correct answer, they say, is C. Okay. Now, this is why they say it's wrong. Because if you suggest bartering because you think it's good for the client, that's not good. You don't bring it up. They bring it up. That's fine. But it implies that.
Yeah, no, you can't do that.
Implies that. All right, this is between retrospective interference and prospective interference, or proactive interference, retroactive.
What?
Remember that, Gen Psych? Retroactive, proactive interference. Retroactive is where what I'm learning now prevents me from learning something that, remember something that happened in the past. Proactive is when something I'm learning now prevents me from learning something in the future. So.
Reading, hand memory, and attention.
4:30
B. Retroactive.
B, you read the whole question.
Okay, one more here and then we'll tie things up.
Carlita.
Carlita would like to study domestic violence intervention in the community. She decides to interview survivors and their families, the mayor, local mental health professionals, the city council member. Which research tradition is mostly closely aligned with her design?
C.
Would eliminate B, because you have so many different perspectives. It's not bad. A, you think of Brene Brown, grounded theory, coming up with different types of interviews and then trying to catch, but they're always of the same type of person, not these different individuals. The different individuals that they're interviewing puts it in this category, ethnographic.
We're going to do great.
Okay, we're just about done for the day. I'll close this in prayer, and then I guess we'll dismiss. I'm not sure if Dr. Sutherland's coming back or not, but it's 4:30, so we'll let you go. Let's just have a word of prayer, and then we'll dismiss for the day. Father, we thank you for the students, for their attentiveness and their energy in the room and their diligence in being a part of this training program. We recognize, Father, that today we are rendering to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. That we are really trying to demonstrate competency of a profession we want to be licensed in, which is perfectly acceptable for the profession to require a certain level of proficiency within the profession. And we pray, Father, for these students as they study, that they will recognize that you are the provider of their sphere of influence and of their ministry as a counselor. And that they just have to be diligent to apply the things that they know and that they've learned in their classes and to trust you for the results. And that their worship to you in all of this is the diligence of how they prepare, not trusting in their preparation or the amount of time they spend on it, but in your grace to be able to give them the calmness of heart and mind as they move through the exam. And I pray, Father, that you will comfort and guide them as they do that, recognizing that this is part of their professional development, this is part of them showing competency within the training that they received here. I pray we'll give everyone a safe journey home to their families and homes, and pray that you will bless us this weekend in Christ's name.
Amen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.